it's seen often in isolation as something happened in a remote part of the country. But it's actually part of a much bigger process that's been going on since about 1969, 1968. And just by way of explanation, I worked on rigs for 12 years in various countries, Norway, Scotland, Ireland. And my Irish experience, we learned a lot about, not at the time it didn't really make sense, but afterwards there was a kind of, things started to fall into place, basically. That there was a pattern to what was going on. And when you get to know the oil companies and how they operate, you can see that when they see there's rich pickings in the country, they'll operate on whatever corrupt type of system is going, whether it's upfront corrupt, like in some of the African countries, or the more subtle, low-level corruption that they can get away with. And they'll get to know who's who. And they'll work with the various players to get what they want, right? So, some of the older people from Ireland you might remember, when we were at school we were told there was no oil and gas in Ireland. That was it. Coal, turf, that's it. And in the late 60s, Marathon Oil discovered on the south coast the Kinsale gas field in relatively shallow waters. And they discovered that it was commercial. Now the state was delighted. Tax deal was very bad at that time. And it got better and it got worse again. Cork became a base. There was a lot of spin-off work in the Cork area. 2 platforms were built here by an Italian corporation called my Corrib. They used Cork and New Ross to build these platforms. There were huge spin-offs from this work. Jobs, goods and services, the harbour of Cork, shipping, you name it. And now there's permanent jobs, but this is at the end of its production cycle. But Marathon, in their initial licence, for £500 they got the whole of the Celtic Sea. Every bit of it. Into perpetuity. So other oil companies here, even though they get their licence to drill from the state, have to farm out from Marathon. Marathon are the company, an American company, that actually physically own the south coast of Ireland, the Celtic Sea. Marathon claim that they're running short of production. There's people who will contradict that there's areas that they've yet to hook into. But their facilities are offshore. The gas is cleaned offshore, and it powers the platforms, the gas itself, there's big turbines. And there's a capability of other fields being hooked into that to get into the gas grid, which goes around Ireland like a ring main. But I'll get back to that in a while. That was the early 70s. The oil companies knew at that stage that there was huge potential. In their own offshore intelligence bulletins and company in-house magazines, it was felt that Ireland had an awful lot of potential. Now, this can't really show the total, but this map, I don't know, can you see it? That's the real map of Ireland. The island of Ireland, the full island. Believe it or not, this area of sea is 10 times that. It's 660,000 square kilometres. Well, the island of Ireland is something like 66,000 square kilometres, 65. That's a huge area. And geologically, in the last few years, say the last 10 years, it's been felt by the oil industry that what they call the Western Atlantic margin, up along here, is the new oil and gas frontier. Now that continues. You can see some maps, I think, there going up towards Norway, and that continues all the way up past Scotland, up towards Norway. And that's where the oil and gas future lies, this area. So just bear that in mind. And you can see even now the way that the pattern here, there's a pattern of licences going right back, that they know. And if you look at the Scottish map, it's exactly the same. The licences are like right along this. So in the 70s, from 77 on, the west coast of Ireland became the new frontier for oil and gas exploration. And there were 3 bases on the west coast. There was Feenit in Kerry, Foynes in Limerick, and Galway. And they more or less, these ports were the service and supply ports to the supply boats. And the supply boats would carry out all the equipment needed for a rig. That created a lot of local industry and a lot of local employment, local business. There was big spin-offs from it. There was guys working offshore, a lot of Irish guys. We got them down from Scotland, Norway and that, on the basis, we operated with the dockers, on the basis that we try and train up. We had a certain amount of skilled people, but we put out people who had, it was a unionised setup. We put out people who had other, how would you put it, transferable skills like fishermen, mechanics, them kind of jobs that would pick up the drilling side of things fairly quickly. So throughout the 70s, from about 77 till the early 80s, there was a lot of activity in these three ports, covering this, what they call the Porcupine area mainly. Although we operated off Donegal, we operated off Mayo, we operated out of Kerry. Sometimes people from one area, if the work was slack, we worked a kind of a pool system that if there was a shortfall, we'd have first call in the various ports. Now what we learned out there, apart from fighting for pay and conditions, but we learned that the full picture wasn't being given to them. But again, there was a certain innocence, or we weren't just thinking bigger picture stuff at the time. We'd just be thinking about the 2 weeks off, to be honest. So we'd fly out of Shannon. Shannon was the main base for flying out to the west coast, even though they used Carramore Airport back in '77 for a while. We also drilled in Dublin Bay. There's blocks here as well in the Dublin Bay area, Kish Basin. But what we found was that the real picture we felt wasn't being given at all. There was an activity happened when we did what's called testing. Now in other countries we just did what we do, but the Irish always seemed to be moved, and a crew was brought out with other equipment that wouldn't normally be there. It was all very hush-hush, very secret. But there was another ongoing operation which we definitely knew that they weren't sending the right information. Without going into the technical side, I don't want to lose you, but basically it's cuttings. It looks like rough sand. It's cuttings of rock, and it's meant to be analysed every half hour, that you drill through it. There's 3 bags taken. 1 bag for the rig, 1 bag for the oil company, 1 bag for the state. And it was a common practice. We saw it ourselves, and we were showing it, that the geologists working for the oil company, when you get to know these people who are living out there, they were told to thin out the sample.